Hello, hello, my friends. Let's talk about the top two mistakes that entrepreneurs make when they are building their team. I am so excited. I've actually been thinking about this live stream for like weeks. I'm not sure why I've been sitting on it because this is going to be so juicy and rich for you all. So, at this stage, when you're ready to build your team or grow your team, or maybe just like redistribute the job duties on your team if you already have a team but it's not quite working the way you want it. At this stage, you already have your offers, you're delivering amazing results to your clients, your pricing menu you feel comfortable with, your packages you feel comfortable with. You've got your lead generation and your sales process, at least the basics down. I'm sure you want to continue growing your revenues and growing your client load and impact, but at this point it's pretty much unsustainable for you to continue as is. So at this point in the game, it's like you're probably, if you are a founder, doing the job of five humans. And it's like, even if you have a team, you're still doing the job of five humans, which is what it was like for me in growing my yoga and Pilates studio. I had a huge teaching team and I had front desk people and a manager, but I was still doing way too much. And at this stage, this is the stage where my clients usually hire me because this is my specialty. So for those of you who don't know me, hello, my friends. I'm Kiki Lovelace. I am a white cisgendered American woman living on Ohlone territory here in my beloved chosen hometown of Oakland, California. And I'm also a mom to two little ones and a new fur baby. We just adopted a stray, Mr. Bandit, who might show up at some point on this live stream. And I am a seven-figure small business owner. I have two businesses, my Pilates and yoga studio here in Berkeley, California, still standing strong in spite of the pandemic. And I'm also an embodied leadership and success mentor to my 6 and 7 figure plus clients who are ready to do this work, to build a team that is trustworthy, that is capable, that actually cares as much as they do, so that they can step out of the day-to-day operations and all like the piddly shit that we business owners and founders have to do in the beginning, and be able to take huge chunks of time off to rest, to travel if that's what they want, or for many of them to work on their next creative project, which means like a new business idea, a new offer, or maybe they want to write their book. This is what I do with my people. I've been doing it for 5 years. And so I often see what happens at this very pivotal moment in the growth of a business, in the growth of a business leader, of a business owner. And I'm going to tell you all about it today. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Who's here? If you are here live, put live in the chat because I can see it. There's a little delay, but I will be able to see it. If you're watching on the replay, put hashtag replay so I can know who's watching and who's checking this out. Okay, so let's get right to it. I want to talk about these two. Yes, hi Stacy, I see you. I'm so glad you're here live. Awesome. So I want to talk to you about these two mistakes. Okay. First of all, I just want to like preface this by saying, of course you're making mistakes as a leader. Like we have very few models, role models in our culture, in politics, in religion, in our schools, in our communities for what truly embodied and authentic and effective leadership looks like. So of course you're messing this up, okay? This is like not a value of our culture. And in fact, the people who really get like center stage are fucking shitty leaders. They're terrible leaders, They're very like I think a lot of us think of leaders or bosses as like sort of domineering and telling people what to do, and many of us we're like, we do not want to be that at all. That's like not how we are at all. And so we often swing the other direction and we become like people pleasers and trying to ask make it a democracy and ask everybody for their opinion and then never make any decisions. And that doesn't work either. We're not even going to go there. But I just want to say, like, bless you for showing up to this live stream. If you are here, it is and you're listening, I'm positive that you deep in your bones want to become a more effective leader. And quite frankly, that is all that is required to start this process, to become a truly exceptional, remarkable, inspiring, well-respected, an effective leader for your business, for your family, for your community, for your audience. So bless you for even like wanting that for yourself. Thank you. And let's figure it out together. Like, because we don't have role models for this. I mean, I want to ask you, like, have you ever had a role model for this? Have you ever had an amazing boss or someone in your community that you're like, wow, that person's an amazing leader? Like, just take a breath and write. You can write it in the chat if you can think of off the top of your head, maybe one, two, maybe three leaders that you've known in your life that you're like, wow, I really, really appreciate their skills as a leader. Write it in the chat. And if you're a zero, like if you've never been around an effective leader, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. It's actually really shitty being around poor leadership. So put 0 in the chat. Yes. Okay. So here are the 2 biggest mistakes. So mistake number 1 is something that I completely did when I was stepping out of the altitude of doer of all the do's and stepping into that altitude of manager, where I actually had team members that I was willing to manage, because I actually always had the team members. I just wasn't really willing to manage them. So this mistake is called micromanaging. Oh my God, put this in the chat if you have ever found yourself doing this. So I'll tell you a quick story. So there was a moment in my business where we had promoted an assistant manager to the operations manager. And this was a moment where I was taking one of my maternity leaves. And so I really did need to step back. There was no other option for me but to learn how to step out of that altitude of doing all the do's, because like I had other things to do to get my baby like fed, and tended to. And so I really did. I trained this person who was still is an employee at my business 8 years later, and an amazing human. And I trained this person, and like, here's how I do things. Here's how we answer customer service emails. I actually specifically remember that like it was spooky for me to hand over, like handling disgruntled customers. When they write us an email, they're upset about something. And like, I feel like I have a way of like talking to people where I can diffuse things pretty quickly. And I know how to make amends. I know how to make repairs. I know how to like drop some money in their account if that's what's required. Like, I know how to soothe a disgruntled customer. And I was super nervous that my people wouldn't be able to handle this. Of course, they can freaking handle it. They handle it now every day, and I never hear from the customers ever. So, but at this time, I wasn't used to that, so I trained her in how to do it. But then I told her as part of the training, like, I want you to send me your draft before you send any email. And now I'm just laughing because I would never want this much clutter in my inbox. But she did that. She sent me her draft, and then I would like, I'm like a wordsmith. So then I would like micromanage and like do all the edits and be like, okay, now it's ready to send. And this kept going, and it really just kept going on for too long. At a certain point, she knew, she actually knew, and it didn't have to be perfect. It didn't actually have to be my way to be effective. Like, she's an effective communicator as well. And so I do remember this moment where, she came into my office and we were having an overview meeting, is what I like to call it. It's sort of like a feedback meeting where it's like 360-degree feedback. She can give me feedback, I can give her. And she was like in a puddle of tears, because she was like, Kiki, I just feel like I'm frozen now. I don't even know how to take action without your approval now, because, and she didn't use the word micromanaging, but I totally was sitting in my chair and I was like, oh, geez, I am the worst manager. I'm not a very good manager. and I really realized, I walked away from that meeting. I told her, I trust you. You're so smart. I'm sorry, I've not been giving you enough credit, truly. And I will back off, because really you absolutely know how to handle these conversations, and you're really good at it. And I'm so sorry, making repairs. So yes, this is one of the mistakes that many of us make, because our businesses are our babies, right? They're babes. It's hard to let them go. It's a growth period. It's a moment in time. So that's one mistake I see many of us making, myself included. The second mistake is a tricky one. And I'll tell you, I see this in both my, barely 6-figure business owners, and I see this in my 7-figure and multi-7-figure business owner clients and audience members, is that when they are hiring someone new, and this is like, especially if they're paying them a little bit more than what they're used to, or, they're paying for someone's expertise, they make the mistake of abdicating responsibility. So let's say you're hiring, a new ads manager, a new ad agency to run all your social media ads. And you're spending, like 4 figures, 5 figures a month to pay these people, maybe not even including ad spend, but just to pay them to manage your ad campaigns. And the mistake I see my people make all over the map is like, okay, great, you do it. See on the flip side. I see that with my 7-figure plus business owners, and I totally see it with my 6-figure, multi-6-figure folks. It's for slightly different reasons. Like I feel like my 6-figure and multi-6-figure folks are just exhausted, and they're like, "You do it, you handle it." And then my 7-figure people usually have a lot more time and a lot more spaciousness. Not always, but usually, and so they're not as exhausted anymore. They're a little more better resource. But I think it trips you up to spend that much money. You assume the person's going to be able to just handle that shit, right? And both of these things are mistakes. And here is why. And here's really what to do instead. Before I tell you this, I'm going to look in the chat because I feel like there's things happening in there. Let's see. Okay, great. Awesome. So here's what to do instead. In order to get results and to really co-create a result with a new contributor, whether they're an employee or an outside vendor, like some expert that you're hiring to help you with a certain project, you need to become a really effective communicator. And this is one of the things I teach my people in my Embodied Leadership Mastermind, which I'll tell you a little more about later, because I find that most business owners and founders and even CEOs don't actually really understand what their true role is. They think they have to roll up their sleeves and get their hands really dirty, or they think they have to completely back off and let their whole team do it for them, abdicating responsibility. And the truth is, you have very distinct roles. And this is something we talk about in Module 9 of the Embodied Leadership Mastermind is these 4 things that are your true job as a visionary leader, as an empowered CEO. Your job is visionary, your job is mentor, your job is decision maker at the end of the day, right? Even if you're co-creating a decision, it's like you got to make the decision and say, this is what we're doing, team, let's go. But then this 4th part of the role is communicator. This is something I work on with all my people. Is like, how can you be a more effective communicator with your team? Of course, this affects like if you do any delivery, the way you communicate with your clients as well, but really with your team, how can you be a really effective communicator? And this is what's required to co-create an incredible result with your team members. And so a couple tips for you on like how to actually do this. Part of being an effective communicator is knowing what you want and being able to describe in great detail, even with some metrics of like, here's how we'll know that we have what we want. This is what it will look like, the end result. Another piece of being a good communicator is that 360-degree feedback. Is being willing, if let's say you have this ad agency and they're putting out some ads and it's not quite the right energetic for your audience. It's like, even though they are the expert, they will love to hear from you, your feedback, and say, oh, use this word instead. This is kind of more the vibe that we have in my brand. Like experts and even non-experts, like your employees that you're hiring and you're training, they love to know more about how to do their job well. Most people are innately very self-motivated and they want to do well. So the more you can give them feedback and then ask for their feedback, like maybe there's a way you're communicating that is like not landing for them. And I find when I ask my employees and my vendors, like certain kinds of questions to get them to tell me how I could support them better, it all works better. It's like I need to learn how to support these individuals. They need to learn how my brain works and how I can best be supported. And so you have to be willing to say this stuff. And this is like, for those of us who are people pleasers, whoo, that is edgy. That is so edgy to like come back and say, that's not quite working. Let's try this. Or like, we got to figure out a new solution to that. Let's try this instead. Or what do you think about this? What would you suggest? So that 360-degree feedback and conversation. And then one more point about being a good communicator It's so very important when you are the visionary leader that you hold this like high standard for where you're going, and for what the results that you want to have are. And it's also very important to be flexible and be pliable and be in the process of creation with your team to get there. Because if you already knew how to get there, let's say you have a goal of like 500K in revenues or 1.5 million in revenues or, 4 million in revenues, whatever. I'm just using a money goal. You might have other goals. But like, let's say you have a very specific goal of how to get there. If you already knew how, you would have already done it. So when you're starting out, you don't actually know how, and you don't need to. What you need to do is each day be in conversation with your team. Here's what I'm thinking. Let's experiment with this. Let's test this out. What do you think? What do y'all think about this offer? But it's about being flexible. And when something falls flat, when you experiment with something on your way, on your road to whatever your goal is, and it doesn't quite work, it's not the end of the world. This is what it is to be an entrepreneur. It's all a fucking grand experiment. It's all a grand experiment. That's something I teach to my team members, is like, we don't have to be perfectionists here. In fact, that is never going to work. So it's all a grand experiment. Let's try it. Let's see. Let's go. Let's make our best guess, take our best stab at it. Let's go. Let's see what happens. And then we'll be able to make a more educated decision after we see what happens. So this is a part of it, is being flexible, not trying to control the how and like make the how exactly the way you thought. This is the joy of collaborating with other humans, is like you co-create the how. Every single team meeting, there's a new sort of creative moment of like, ooh, let's put your idea with my idea and then your idea. And then like, let's create this new thing that none of us could have ever created by ourselves. And that to me is one of the joys of having a high functioning, no drama dream team of contributors. It's so fun being in collaboration. I guess for me, like, I'm triple Aries, supremely independent, sort of like a cat in that way. And so for me, it's so delightful to have matured as a leader to the point where I can really enjoy the process of creation and collaboration instead of feeling like I have to figure it all out myself. That's like such a sign of my spiritual evolution, I will tell you, that I'm very proud of. And it just delights my soul every single day. So, for those of you for whom this is really resonating, I want you to hang on for the next few minutes, because I want to tell you about something very important and exciting. And that is my Embodied Leadership Mastermind. Right now, I'm enrolling the October round. And this is for those of you who have secret dreams of waking up to a slow morning every single morning. Like, even if you have kids like I do, it's like you get to sit and drink your coffee and look out the window and, like, in the words of my client Kawasi, like, become a human. You just have time to do that. You have time for your spiritual practices. You have time for your workout, your exercise, if you're doing that. You just have time to collect yourself and to mine the ethers for your visions, because that's one of your jobs as an empowered CEO, is the visionary, right? So you need time and relaxation and spaciousness to actually get clarity around your visions. Yes, this is why we all get our best ideas on vacation, is because it's like we're in that sort of relaxed and open nervous system, connected to nature, connected to our body rhythms, connected probably to pleasure on some level. And of course, that gets us more in that state of the visionary. Yes, I know you want this. I know also you probably, if you're like me, have a very deep desire to have a team of support where you don't feel like you're doing it alone. And a team that there's a lot of mutual respect. It's high functioning. It's not like dysfunctional and codependent and toxic. I'm sure that is very important to you if you are watching this live stream. And I'm sure that you want, location freedom, not just that you could like live anywhere or travel anywhere, because actually many of us have that now, although maybe you do want that, but also like where you want the freedom to actually be able to unplug, turn off your device for at least a few hours a day, several days on the weekend, 2 or 3 days on the weekend, for sure. And then like when you are taking your vacation or your sabbatical for a month or 2 months, like you truly can unplug. Your team holds it down in your sales process, in your marketing, in your customer service, in your delivery with as much care and precision as you would if you were doing it yourself. And this is exactly why I created the Embodied Leadership Mastermind. This is exactly what I'm going to teach you. I have a 3-step system, the Embodied Leadership System. I've been sculpting and curating and testing and working in my own business and with hundreds of my own business owner and CEO clients over the last 5 years. And I'm going to tell you about the system today because there are 3 main chunks that we will do over the 3 months that we'll be working together in the container. So step 1 is about your alignment. It's about addressing the misalignments in your role, in your like actual to-do list, and looking at like what's working, what's not working, and also doing that with your key players. It's like what's working, what's not working, what can we take off your plate, what really lights you up. So addressing misalignments. Now, if you have some misaligned team members, that first step is going to be challenging for you because you and I are going to have some conversations about are these the right team members or not? Because the truth is when you have misaligned team members, it absolutely puts a ceiling on your abundance, on your ability to access more revenue, more wealth, more creative freedom, more delight, more joy. It's like all the wealth, not just the money wealth, but like all the wealth. And so addressing misalignments is absolutely the first stage to creating your dream team. Now, the second part is about implementing these 5, what I call sparkling company culture shifts. And these are like specific things that you do in regularly in your team meetings, in the way you communicate in your emails, or if you have like a Slack channel or however you communicate Basecamp with your people. But ways that you actually weave a web that is truly luminous and sparkling that creates a genuine fabric of of your company where no one person is now needed because the company culture and the company itself stands on its own 2 feet. So you're not needed, your star marketing person is not needed necessarily, like everyone's important, but no one is needed because the company culture is so strong. It's something distinct from any one person. And this is the kind of company culture that people love to come into your company. Like they'll start to hear about it. They'll start to hear like, oh, so and so, like they do this and they do that, and like all their people always like grow and evolve and go on to do amazing things. Like I want to work for that company. That happens to me now, where like people come to me and apply and they're like, I heard about you from so and so, and like they always are raving about what it is like to work for one of your companies, so I'm applying for this job today. So company culture is so very important, and it's actually what creates that energetic where your team members care as much about your soul mission as you do. And that's such a relief because you can actually step back and know that they will hold it with such potency and such passion. And it's just truly a miracle. And then this third step is what we were starting to talk about a little bit earlier in the live stream, which is about assuming your true role as an empowered CEO and visionary leader. It's not about doing all the little shit. I remember talking to a fellow studio owner. This was like a decade ago, and she was sort of complaining about how her team doesn't see and appreciate, like all the things that she does. And she's like, if they had any idea, like all I do is like deal with divas all day and set the mouse traps. And I thought that was so funny. And so, for many of us, at least when we start out, that's what it feels like, right? That's what it feels like running a team, dealing with divas and setting the mouse traps. But the truth is, that's not your role, babe. That is not, someone else can set those freaking mouse traps. And also, when you implement these 3 steps, there are no more divas, including yourself. Like you will become like just the best version of you, humble, confident at the same time, humble, confident, collaborative, and truly creative in your serving your life's mission, your life's work through your business. And that is what I want for you. And I know that there are many of you who, you might be watching this and you're like, wow, who's this person talking on the live stream about this? I've never even known this person. So for some of you watching this, you might not know if this is the right container of support for you, and you just hang out in my world for a little while and then you'll figure it out, yes or no. Some of you already know that you want to work with me as your mentor, but you're not quite ready yet. You're still working on your offers, your niche, your closer skills as a salesperson, or maybe your marketing, your messaging. Great. Like, you come back to me in a year or two and we'll have this conversation. But there's a very small group of you that I want to talk to today who absolutely knows, like, this is it. This is your next thing. This would be an amazing investment for you, but you're a little bit stuck about the money, because this is not a small investment. It's, $10,000 for pay in full, $12,000 for a 6-month payment plan, $2,000 per month. And then I have a VIP tier as well, for those of you who want more one-on-one coaching. So it's not a small investment. And I want to talk to you about what it is to have a saver mindset versus an investor mindset. So, like, I just told you part 1 of maturing as a business leader. Now we're going to talk about part 2, which is maturing as an investor and as an entrepreneur. Here's what I want you to know, my loves. Our culture has sort of hardwired into all of us, our bodies, our nervous systems, some beliefs about investing, about spending money. I would like to argue that spending is different than investing. But a lot of us are super in like a sort of freeze state about our money and about specifically making investments to grow our wealth. Some of those investments that I make every single year in both my businesses are on payroll, like new positions or increasing the pay of my current people who are doing so great in their positions. So payroll. I also make investments every year in, equipment or software or, upgrades. And even in my online business, I make investments in upgrading how we can serve our people and the way we deliver it in our systems. And then, of course, there's mentorship. And, for me personally, I invest heavily in mentorship every single year to the tune of 6 figures plus. I didn't start out investing that way. I started out, with free mentors for many years. And then I was like, oh, this is helping. Okay. And then I spent $7,000 and that was like super stretchy for me. And then the next year I spent $20,000 and that was like very stretchy for me. And now I spend 6 figures, which is stretchy for me. But I know already that I know how to get a return on investment. I always know how to get a return on investment, especially for business coaching. And it's 100% the reason that I'm making 4 times as much money as I used to make, and love my businesses much more than I used to, because I used to resent them a lot. So those of you who already know this is the right thing and you're sort of just struggling with like parting with 10K, here's what I want you to know. There are 2 different ways to become a self-made millionaire. Those of you who already are a millionaire or multimillionaire, we don't have to talk about this. I'm talking about those of us who want to be a self-made millionaire. So one of the ways is scrimp and save. And if you are a business owner who's actually paying yourself a pretty good salary, like 6 figures plus salary, you could do this. You could scrimp and save and sort of bootstrap your way to $1 million. By the way, $1 million is probably not enough money for you, but let's just use that as a figure. Like, if you really want to live off your investments, you're going to need a lot more than $1 million. But let's just say, so it takes scrimpers and savers on average 35 years to become a millionaire. So that's one way you could do it. Now, for those of us who are self-made millionaires, who are entrepreneurs, we cannot go the scrimp and save. Oftentimes there's not a lot of money to save when you're really making big moves. You're spending a lot of money in order to make big moves, right? Now, I want you to know, like, you have to take on an investment mindset in order to go this other route of an entrepreneur, a self-made millionaire. And people who make their millions as an entrepreneur take on average 12 years to do so, not 35, 12 years to do so. But I'll tell you, you have to break a lot of freaking rules, okay? You have to break a lot of rules of your family around money. You have to break a lot of rules of like our collective all the stories about how debt is the devil and you should never take it on, understand that those stories are coming from the scrimpers and savers, not from the investors. Because anyone who has $1 million or multi-million dollars of assets has debt. And debt's not a problem. It's actually really, truly not a problem at all if you know how to manage it. And if you're strategically making your investments and possibly taking on debt to do so in order to build wealth. So we're not talking about taking on debt so that you can have a new hat or a new pair of shoes. We're talking about strategically using debt if that's what's required, or your savings if that's what's required, in order to build wealth. And it's gutsy. It is super freaking gutsy. I will just tell you, it's like, it's edgy. Understand you're not alone. Understand every entrepreneur in the universe started out using their personal fucking credit cards to do it, just like you, because no one will lend to you when you have no business credit, right? It's like, oh my gosh, even in my second business, in my coaching business, I have run into this. It's like, I only made a second entity a couple of years ago. I was sort of housing my revenues under my first entity as I was starting to build that business. And now, I have a couple of years of tax returns. Well, for my second entity, well, like, nobody wants to lend to you or even talk to you about business credit until you have several years. So it's super gutsy. You have to be very persistent, and you have to break a lot of rules. But this is what's required for you to do the thing that you want to do. And I just want to give you permission today to do that, and just to tell you, like, welcome to the club, babe. This is what it is. This is what it is to mature as a business owner and to be very strategic with your money. It's like, I'm not saying that those of you who are ready to take on more of an investment mindset aren't going to be saving. It's just that that's not the only wealth strategy that you have, is scrimping and saving. Like, absolutely, I want you to save, and you should want that for yourself too, because all of us have a sort of baseline wealth cushion or savings cushion that makes us feel safe. And that's actually very, very important. But for many of us, like myself included, like, I couldn't save because there was no overflow. I had to actually invest and take on business debt for both of my businesses in order to even make enough money to save. High risk tolerance. I have a very high risk tolerance. Put it in the chat if you have a pretty high risk tolerance. I think for a lot of us, like, we feel ashamed of our risk tolerance. Like, we feel like we're so risky, and I just want to say to you, like, good for you for backing your dreams, for being willing to put some skin in the game. For me personally, I always had skin in the game. Like, I didn't have like some sort of fund, like for family money that I could lean on. My husband didn't have a super high paying job. My boyfriend at the time, when I started my business, didn't have a super high paying job. Like, I was all in from the very beginning, and I took on $300,000 worth of debt, before even knowing that it was going to work. Crazy towns. But you know what I learned? I learned that I can manage that shit. I can manage it. And it's not that big of a deal. There's a lot of other things that are a big deal, but that's not one of them. It's truly not. And because I manage it so well, I have very good credit, and I have lots of different ways that I could leverage my different investments and my different assets so I can continue to build wealth. Yes, this is how it works, my friends. So for those of you who are curious about the Embodied Leadership Mastermind, oh my gosh, it's going to be so amazing. We're going to start in October. We will meet the first 3 weeks of each month, October, November, December, for our coaching calls, live coaching with me every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. PST, just in case you're wondering. That's what it's going to look like. You can put it in your calendar. We will have a private Facebook group. I'm going to have my modules for you that are so beautiful, streamlined, super easy to digest. I've also designed the program so that there are implementation weeks where we won't have coaching calls, you won't have a new module, but it's just time for you to integrate and implement, because I really want you to walk away from this 3-month very intimate coaching experience feeling very much empowered as a CEO, not as a doer, not as a manager, as a CEO, as a visionary leader who understands her true divine assignment on this planet at this time and who understands how to actually do it in the 3D reality with the humans around her, with the offers that she has, with all the gifts that she has. And I cannot wait. So I'll put the link to learn more about it in the comments below. And if it feels like a good fit, I invite you to apply. I will personally read your application to make sure that I agree with you, that it does seem like the right time for you and the right fit. And I'm positive that I can help you get what you want for your business, for your schedule, for your time freedom, for your location freedom, and really for this dream team that's going to allow you to scale your business so much further than you can probably even imagine at this moment in time. So thank you all. Put the link below, and I hope you have a great weekend.